Good morning, dear friends. I'm standing on a beautiful bridge in Rome called the Bridge of Sant Angelo. What you see at the back is called Castel Angelo, a historic monument which has a connection with the city of Vatican. It was built by Emperor Hadrian. And about a century later, it was strengthened by Emperor Aurelian. It was turned into a fort. Later the popes made a kind of bridge to Vatican. And in fact, even today, there is a passage from this Castel Sant Angelo to Vatican. Interesting, the angel which we see on top is called the angel. The whole fort is named after this angel. And that's why it's called Castel Sant Angelo. In other words, castle of the angel. Interestingly, history goes back to 590 when there was an epidemic in Rome. The tradition says Pope Gregory, during a procession, seems to have seen an angel putting back his sword in the sheath as a gesture of peace. And that's how this fort has been named as Castle of the Angel, Castello Sant Angelo. Today is a very historic monument. The other interesting things that one wants to see inside is the papal apartments and the prisons wherein the ecclesiastical prisoners were housed. Most of the important celebrations of Rome, like musical and other theatrical celebrations, are occasionally held here. The history of Rome, as we know, is more than 2,000 years old. So from Castel Sant Angelo, we go on to visit the most important Basilica of the Catholic Church, the Vatican. We are happy to present to you these important sites which are so very dear to Catholicism. Just at the side of this famous Castel Sant Angelo in Vatican flows the famous river Tiber. We are standing on the bridge which actually connects us to Castel Sant Angelo. During summer, the river assumes a very important role. A lot of tourists can be seen along the river. And in the evenings, there are restaurants to serve the tourists. What you see at the back is St. Peter's Vatican. I am on the bridge of Castel Sant Angelo. Only about a few. It will take me about 5 minutes to reach Vatican, St. Peter's Vatican. As I said, there was a bridge from St. Peter's to Castel Sant Angelo, which can still be seen. Today it's just a wall, unused, but that was the wall which had a passageway from the castle to St. Peter's Basilica. Another important thing they tell us about the fort is that the treasures of the Middle Ages, all the material treasures, were kept in some of those boxes, huge boxes which are still in the fort of Castel Sant Angelo. I had the chance of entering the fort last year and I saw those old wooden boxes, huge wooden almirahs, which according to tradition they say housed or rather preserved all the treasures of the church. This is June, and as you know, Rome is very, very hot. It's as hot as India perhaps. It's about 38 to 40 degrees these days in June. June, July, August. These are the hottest months in Rome. So a lot of tourists from all over the world are flocking to Rome to see art and architecture that Rome presents. Sometimes they say Rome has many more tourists than the locals, many more foreigners than the locals themselves. Well, it's a lovely sight. It's a beautiful experience to be here in Rome. What you see at the side of the river are restaurants for the tourists. In the evenings, all these restaurants on the bank of the river are full of tourists. This is the lifestyle of celebration all along the river, with lights of all colors, cool weather, fantastic atmosphere of moments of celebration. Dear friends, I am sitting at the back of Castel San Angelo. I'd like to just pinpoint something about that famous bell which is there near the angel. It is called the Bell of Mercy. Tradition says this bell used to be rung when those condemned to death were executed. So it was to announce that the execution had taken place. As I told you, the Castel Angelo is very famous because of its history, which was in the hands of the emperors and then later in the hands of the popes. I'd like to remind you once again that it was Pope Gregory the Great who seems to have seen the angel putting back his sword as a sign of peace. And that's why they made that bronze statue of the angel as a sign of peace, and the bell next to him to commemorate this event. Connecting the castle to the Vatican, the famous wall can still be seen over here. It's on my right. You can see the wall. This is the wall which connected Vatican and the castle. Behind the castle, there's a lovely garden for tourists and people to enjoy themselves. In summer, it's a beautiful garden, full of air, full of tourists, full of parents and children to enjoy themselves. It is said that during one war, I do not know which war, I have no chance of verifying the truth. They say during the war, the Pope escaped from St. Peter's and came to hide in this castle of the angel, Castel Sant Angelo. Around Vatican, there are many important architectural buildings. One such important building is the Curia Generalizia of the Jesuits, which is just at the side of the Vatican. The Generalate of the Jesuit Society. And at the back of the Jesuit Society, just above a little hillock, is a famous urban university, the University of the Popes. It is in this university campus that Cardinal Ivan, the prefect of the Congregation for Evangelization of Peoples, has his residence. Of course, now it's already a few months since he retired, but his residence officially is in the campus of Urban University. In the history of the church, there was that office called Propaganda Fide. Today that has been changed, and today is called the Congregation for Evangelization of Peoples. The famous library of the Propaganda Fide is even today, it is in the campus of the Urban University. It's a library by itself, meant mainly for scholars who come to do research on important church topics. The Jesuits have a beautiful library which practically has the history of the Catholic Church and a kind of gold mine for every scholar who wants to do any research connected with the church or any congregation. The library, in fact, is well kept and is accessible to only scholars of universities with proper permission. I had the privilege of visiting the Jesuit library, the archive, which generally is not accessible to anyone.